On behalf of National Gallery of Modern Art and Ananya Drishya, I welcome all of you, the panelists, as well as the viewers who have joined us for this online virtual panel discussion. The Candid Talk, being an artist in the pandemic, and we have with us the panelists Parvathi Nayar, Arun Kumar HG, Mithu Sen, Kalam Patua, Amit Lodh. So we have the speaker and the moderator, Ms. Lina Vincent, art historian and curator. So I would be introducing Lina, and then Lina would be taking over with the panelist introduction of the program, as well as the artists, the panelists. Lina is an independent art historian and curator with 2 decades experience in art management. She is committed to socially engaged practices that reflects in multidisciplinary projects she has developed and participated in. The focus areas of her research extend to projects with art education, printmaking history, and practice, the documentation of living traditions and vernacular arts, and environmental consciousness in arts. She concluded an archival museum fellowship through India Foundation for Arts for Goa Goa Chaitra Museum and it's Goa Chitra Museum, and runs the Goa Familia Archival Photography Project with Serendipity Art Foundation. She initiated and headed the Permal Residency Art Incubator Program 2019-20. Selected curatorial projects in the last 5 years include Good Food India, International Arts Program for Change Awareness 2019-18, Story of Space Multidisciplinary Public Arts Program Goa 2017, Tabiat Medicine and Healing in India, CSMVS Mumbai 2016-17. She has curated numerous exhibitions with galleries across India and continues to contribute to publication of art history and contemporary cultural practices. So I welcome you all again. Lina, I welcome you on behalf of National Gallery of Modern Art and Ananya Drishya. We are pleased to tell you that you readily agreed, and you're with your concept and being the speaker and the moderator for today's panel discussion. Thank you, and handing over to you.
Good afternoon, and thank you so much, Darshan. It's always a pleasure to be connected with NGMA, which is like home. It's really something that I am so glad about, to welcome all the artists who have taken the time to be on this panel today. The other day, I was listening to a talk by Abhay Sardesai, who's the editor for Art India, and he said that we are all part of this split screen universe. And I think that's become something that's very true for all of us. We are living in this split screen space, and we are learning how to communicate with each other in different ways. Before I introduce the panelists for the day, I'd like to give very briefly the ideas that come behind this candid conversation. We do always say that artists like isolation, and they love to be in their studios with their work, primarily thinking their thoughts and making work. But in this pandemic period, artists have also been separated from what we think may be the inspiration, the world around, the environment, people, the different interactions, and so on. So what is the mental, emotional status of an artist during this time? The other thing is that galleries and institutions across have geared up to give artists support and opportunities in different ways. Perhaps those who have abilities to connect digitally have been able to take more advantage of these things. But is the artist's role only as a producer of objects of art, or is there other relevance to an artist? What is the definition of the social and cultural role of beyond the production of artworks? Additionally, I think since NGMA is the platform for us today, it is important for us to think what is the role of an organization like an NGMA like the various collectors and institutions who keep the cycle of an artist's life complete, because an artist produces work, reaches an audience through certain systems. And we do have certain very specific systems for that. So, with this brief introduction, I would like to open it up to the artists by first introducing all of them. I do once again thank Ananya Drishya as well as NGMA for providing this platform to us. Amit Lodh is trained as a printmaker, but he prefers to paint. He did his master's in arts from MS University Baroda in 2012 and a bachelor's from IKS VV Khairagarh, Chhattisgarh. He has participated in multiple national and international shows, including the Busan International Festival in Korea and the Art Fair in Dubai, in group shows with eminent galleries across India all the way since 2008. Amit has also worked with many organizations and different artists that gave him a better understanding of the art market and art education in the art scenario. He currently lives in Mumbai. Kalam Patua, artist who has reinvented the Kalighat painting tradition as we know it today. He was born into a Patua community of scroll painters and storytellers and subsequently taught himself the Kalighat style. Kalam's work has been exhibited extensively in India and abroad. It is part of the permanent collections at the Crafts Museum and the National Gallery of Modern Art in Delhi and the Victoria and Albert Museum and collections around the world. Kalam lives in Rampurhat in West Bengal and works from his studio at home. Parvathi, Chennai-based artist, writer and poet known for her multidisciplinary art, centered on drawing practices, video installations, mixed media, painting and photography. Parvati's art talks about different engagements with our environment and the philosophies of inhabiting them, often through the prism of science and technology. She has held many solo and group shows in India and abroad, and shown at prestigious venues such as the Kochi Biennale. Parvati is a TEDx speaker and commentator on contemporary culture. She received her Masters in Fine Arts from the Central St. Martin's College of Art and Design, London, on a Chevening scholarship. Mithu Sen works in a variety of media to explore and subvert hierarchical codes and rules, with particular reference to sexuality, language, value of art and objects, and experiences of marginalization. Through various devices and interventions, she challenges our standards of social exchange, undermining the codes we come to rely on and recalibrating types of interaction. Her practice incorporates drawing, poetry, social media, instructional exchanges, and performance. She has exhibited widely and performed at museums, institutions, galleries, and biennales internationally. She received the Skoda Award for Best Indian Contemporary Art in 2010 and most recently the Performance Artist of the Year by India Today. She lives and works in New Delhi. Arun Kumar, HG, completed his bachelor's and master's degrees in fine art from the MS University Baroda. Arun has been working on environmental and agrarian related issues for a long while, and he has set up the Center for Knowledge and Environment, the SARA Center, which can be checked online, in the Western Ghats of Karnataka. He has held solo shows at Gallery Espas, Icon Gallery New York, Nature Mort New Delhi, and Sakshi Gallery Mumbai, and participated in numerous group shows in India and abroad. He has been part of international artist residencies like Art Omi New York and Khoj Workshop New Delhi. With those brief introductions to the artists, I open it up now to the candid conversation by sort of bringing together one question that is on everybody's minds right now, and particularly in my mind as a curator. What does being an artist mean to you specifically? And how has this period of the pandemic changed your ideas of your own identity and social presence as an artist? So I open this up to all of you, and perhaps Parvati, if you would like to open up the conversation by thinking about this.
Um, well, just on behalf of the artists, thank you, Lina, for bringing us together. And thank you too to Ananya Drishyar and to NGMA. And, it's really a very timely discussion to have at this point. And I think, to sort of take your question in sort of several parts, I think the crux of that question is, what does it mean? What does being an artist mean? And I think there's a quote from an American novelist and a short story writer called Sherwood Anderson, which I found very pertinent in these times, because he said the point of being an artist is that you may live. The thing, of course, is to make yourself alive. Most people remain all of their lives in a stupor, and the object of art is not to make saleable pictures, it is to save yourself. And this notion, I think, was what grounded me a lot in these times, in that, forcibly we were sort of, looking inwards and being in the house. And there were many, the usual things that you take for granted, whether it is, just your ability to go out and go to an art show opening, or to have your own show, or to interact. All these things were compressed. And I think for me, it sort of came down to that thing of saying, why do I do an artwork? Why am I an artist? And I don't mean this in any kind of high flown or elitist way, but it did make me sort of come back to that crux of saying, I'm doing the art as a way of expressing what it is to be alive, and to make sense of my presence in the world. And I think that was what sort of, that was the positive part, that it kind of brought you back to a core and said, yes, it still makes sense to be an artist without the external trappings. But of course, it became a lot more difficult without, there were shows canceled, there were, amazing opportunities that were supposed to happen this year, a project in Korea, another one in Singapore, all of them put on hold, or, so you still needed to kind of deal with these disappointments and yet find a place within yourself to create. And I think that's what made sense for me.
Arun, if you would like to comment on that.
Okay. Hello, everyone. I thank everyone for this opportunity. As Parvati is touching on those issues that we have all been going through, one major thing was that, we were in that flow of, in our practice, whatever that we had been doing, there was hardly any disruption. But this disruption was really a terrible one, and this has curtailed our movements and the flow of thoughts. Yeah, all that has happened, and suddenly maybe there is a good thing about it is also question this flow, whichever side it was flowing towards. So this question has, and with so much of time also, so has given us all find an answer, and also introspection. That was really something, and it has been already 10 months already, and by now we are quite used to, and also sorted out how to move forward with our practice, and realignment of whatever that we had to do. But still, it is not over. It is still there, and there was a very unsettling mood in the mind. It is still going on. Keep hearing about new things, may come and things. It's not over, but we, I mean, this looks like a new normal for us. So this has been going on, and in my case, especially in my practice, what was happening was that since I was studying, environmental issues, since last 15 years or so, things were, the scientists were warning that things would, like, something like would come, and it just came so early and quickly to disrupt our way of life. And in my practice, I had moved out of this so-called studio practice, and had set up this center, and working with the community already. So that was something that also got a little disrupted, and so now we have found a way, and things are moving, and and it is with a new a mindset how to deal with such things. So yeah, so that is what is the current status.
Right. Kalamji, what is your opinion? How have you felt being an artist has been in this particular period? Are you able to hear me, Kalamji?
Now it's changed by mobile. Now sound is okay.
So, talking about the identity of an artist, तो आपको कैसे लगा? What have you been feeling about your own identity as an artist during this period? Maybe
बताइए दोबारा, आवाज कट रहा है.
तो ये जो हम आइडेंटिटी के बारे में बात कर रहे थे, तो what do you feel has your experience of your identity as an artist during this period? Sound
पूरा ब्रेक हो रहा है, तो आवाज एकदम नहीं आ रहा है.
हाँ, तो हम लोग अगले क्वेश्चन के लिए आएंगे. I'll just move to Amit for now. Because we are having some sort of echo, I think. Amit,
Yeah.
I think that I'll ask you the same thing. What have you been feeling, as an artist?
First of all, thanks for this opportunity, Lina and MGMA. मेरे लिए ये क्वेश्चन समथिंग इज अ टफ बीइंग एन आर्टिस्ट, क्योंकि आई एम रिप्रेजेंटिंग इन आर्ट, तो वो बहुत ही मेरे लिए एक अलग मायने रखता है कि ये क्वेश्चन. और देन क्योंकि मैं एज अ प्रैक्टिसिंग आर्टिस्ट एंड एट द सेम टाइम आई वर्किंग डिफरेंट ऑर्गेनाइजेशन इन आर्ट गैलरी एंड आर्ट मैनेजमेंट, तो मैंने आर्ट को दोनों तरफ से देखा है कि एक डाउन एंड अप. तो मेरे एज अ पर्सनल व्यू, मेरे लिए एज अ बीइंग एन आर्टिस्ट, तो जस्ट लाइक ए न्यूज़पेपर, इस पेंडेमिक में जो मैं देखा वो रिफ्लेक्ट किया, ये मैं सोचता हूँ. और मेरे लिए एज अ पेंडेमिक इज पॉजिटिव वे, क्योंकि मोस्टली आर्टिस्ट या आर्ट ऑर्गेनाइजेशन बहुत डिफरेंट जगह से बात करते हैं, डिफरेंट एक पॉजिटिव नेगेटिव बातें आते हैं. बट एज अ पर्सन मी, क्योंकि ये वी आर प्रिपेयर्ड कि ये कुछ भी होता है आर्ट ऑर्गेनाइजेशन की बात, एज अ ग्लोबली कुछ होता है तो आर्ट के ऊपर सबसे पहले इफेक्ट होता है, क्योंकि इससे पहले भी हो चुका है कि रिसेशन के टाइम, उसके पहले भी 10 ईयर 15 ईयर, तो आर्टिस्ट को हमेशा प्रिपेयर होना चाहिए एज अ फाइनेंशियली. तो दैट्स वाई कि थोड़ा सा फाइनेंशियल सपोर्ट हो आर्टिस्ट को, तो आर्टिस्ट बहुत इंजॉय कर सकता है इज अ पैंडमिक. इट्स अ पॉजिटिव वे, क्योंकि मैं बहुत इंजॉय किया हूँ, मैं बहुत अलग वे में सारी चीज़ों को देखा हूँ. तो बीइंग ए आर्टिस्ट यही मैं बोलूँगा कि वी आर न्यूज़पेपर, क्योंकि आर्टिस्ट ट्रांसफर कर रहे सारे चीज़ों को अपने विजुअल थिंग के विजुअलाइज के थ्रू. या
Thanks, Amit. I think that's a different point of view, and that's, I think, the beauty of this is that everybody's experience, even though it is connected in some ways, it's also really different. Mithu, what do you think about this? How has been your experience, and what have you felt about this whole idea of an identity, a social identity, or a label as an artist?
Wow. Well, like, okay, I forget things. So first, very formally, professionally, I have to thank all of you in GMA Bangalore and Drishya. What is the whole thing?
Drishya.
Yeah, and Lina for having me here, and I'm very happy to see all the faces, like my friends, colleagues. Yes, I mean this digital screen, as you said, that how I said, like that, like a need of, yeah. So that is become a new real. But whether it's a new real or not, I would always like to put my own lexicon, a prefix before that new real. So I call it unreal. And so for me, that, like identity as an artist is more like it's creating a mythic being that I always keep addressing in my practice, that this whole autobiographical fiction that we create, it is never one singular, kind of linearity we try to. It's a projection. There are multiple projections about an artist. There is a politics also behind creating an artist, creating that myth, and there is market. But artists as ourselves are kind of a stubborn romantic being. I still believe in romanticism, and I think there is something that, it's not a profession, but it's a way of being. It's a lifestyle, and you don't know, like, when you become one, you just live a life, and like everyone, sensitive human being, a citizen, you constantly respond to the time. And though the time is very flattened at this moment, and we are even questioning about the time itself. Anyway, so this, as a diarist, I would say how someone narrating the politics of the contemporary, so how that byproducts or the responses are becoming like a product of your time and your culture, how you are transcending that culture or the time into something. And most importantly, like, what is the role of you as an artist? Do we really have a role, or are we responsible? I think no. We don't really feel that. I mean, I personally can say I don't really feel that I have to be responsible for something, unless I don't want to survive.
Okay.
So I'm sorry for my little weird humor, but anyway, so the power for art for me, like, I don't know why I separate constantly, or why we all separate constantly the art from life. Someone recently asked me, how much does it matter, the policymakers, to what you create, like, as an artist? So I said, like,
Right.
I don't create a production, a tangible production only, but a thought process. I try to poke or invoke or, kind of respond. So that the whole power of art for me lies in the relation of politics. So, and that politics, I don't really borrow from a very theoretical norm. The politics is life, like what is earned and experienced from everyday everyday living, So
Yes.
I'd rather take my position as a disclaimer, like as an anarchist, attempts to like interrogate or subvert or even seduce, destabilize the whole monolith sculpture that some kind of construct is created by some kind of politics, which is becoming a monolith institutionalized structure, and we are taking it as a normal, but which is not really normal. For more than 50 days the farmers are protesting. Is it normal? We are thinking normal because they are strong, they are like they can do, even they are saying that. So this creating this mythic heroes is the problem, and I want to unmyth that myth. They are human, they are suffering, they are there in cold, like our parents, maybe 70, 80 years old. They are feeling. So we forget that the skin and the flesh and with the blood we have the same. So when I am inside the room with a heater, how I respond. So for me, that was the reality, and that is the reality for a long time. And the screen responding, which we are thinking very unreal to us today, it is the reality. And this fake, false reality we are inhabiting in our system, making it is a cognitive structure and very common for a very long time. So pandemic or no pandemic, I think, of course, we are going through all this, what my fellow friends are saying, like all this disruption, depression, but this is not just the recent. It is for very, very long time. And like nature, it's for us also the time to really reflect what Arun said, that as an environmental, it is like us working through those issues. He already knew, like that insects or ants, they know in advance when the earthquake is coming. Only the human being, they don't. So why should we separate first from myself as a human being and an artist? We are not like something very special. First, I think I like to be a human being with some kind of skin, not very thick though. Yeah. So I don't know what is going to answer, but it's just like that response. I feel like everything, and this whole idea of myth and the mythic structure of creating that phenomena is a crime that trap us to perform in some way which is manipulated, and we slowly forget that we had some freedom. We can constantly become and explore, and every day we can experiment and challenge, and not to repeat ourselves again and again, whether it's as a stylistic form or as a manner or as a lifestyle, whatever. So that is artist to me, and I think it will always be the same. No pandemic is not a very unhappy state. Rather, it gives my physical body a little stable, like kind of static moment. Even my husband is calling me, because he calls me visiting wife. So this last 11 months, it's a different status I'm inhabiting. So yeah.
Thank you. That was, in fact, such a wonderful and a broadly expressed set of feelings that came from all of you. I'll go back to Kalamji now. If you can hear me better now.
Sorry, I'm alone. Somebody's ringing the bell. I'm coming. Huh? I'll come in 1 minute.
Kalamji, आपको अभी सुनाई दे रहा है?
हाँ, अभी अच्छा ही सुनाई दे रहा था, तो अब जब बात शुरू किया तो थोड़ा काट रहा है आवाज। मिठू का सारे अच्छी तरह से मैंने सुना।
नहीं, but let me ask you this. जो हमने बात किया था कि what is now the situation when your work is put online? So everything is, all the art artworks have been put online now, and we are not able to see the scale or the texture or the richness of the artworks. How do you feel yourself now when you see everything is going online?
So ये थोड़ा डिफिकल्ट है जैसे during pandemic I am staying in Rampur and working in the post offices, and I don't have enough time to make paintings, and I'm not very happy for this situation. Actually, almost all people are very much suffering during the pandemic. But as far as the digital media is concerned, uh, it is not very easy for me to communicate with the people. जब मैं जाता हूं तो लोग देखते हैं वो अच्छा हमारा काम थोड़ा बारीक होता है तो अचानक देखते हैं तो ठीक होता है जो डिजिटली कैमरा इतना अच्छा नहीं होगा तो नहीं देख सकते कलर का भी बहुत कुछ प्रॉब्लम हो रहा है तो डायरेक्टली जब मैंने बहुत ऑर्गेनाइज वर्कशॉप में काम करता हूँ बच्चों के साथ वो देखता है तो सिखाने में भी बहुत इजी होता है तो डिजिटली हमारे लिए मेरा लाइक जितने सारे फोक और ट्रेडिशनल पेंटर है इसके लिए थोड़ा मुश्किल है आमने सामने जो बात होता है जो काम होता है वो नहीं होता है और इतना ही this is a very peculiar situation all in India where the work of the traditional artists have low commercial value तो बहुत बार्गेनिंग भी होता है मिडिलमैन बहुत लेते हैं जैसे आप देखोगे जो ऑनलाइन में जो पेंटिंग इतना महंगा में सेल होता है तो 10 गुना से कम मेरे को मिलता है तो ये मिडिलमैन का जो है ये भी होता है तो डिजिटली और भी मुश्किल हो गया हमारे लिए जैसे हम निकल नहीं सकते पोस्ट ऑफिस में काम करता हूँ इवन दो आई एम ए सक्सेसफुल आर्टिस्ट in this country but there is a difference between successful contemporary artists because people give us very low commercial value तो डिजिटली हमारा तो थोड़ा मुश्किल ही है एज एन आर्टिस्ट हम तो समाज के एक दर्पण होता है समाज के जो देखते हैं वो करते हैं तो ये पेंडेमिक पीरियड में भी मैंने इतना काम नहीं कर सका क्योंकि इतना so many things so many incidents happens migrant labor facing mass travel लाठी चार्ज जो कोई लेडीज हंड्रेड्स ऑफ माइल्स पैदल में आ रहे हैं बच्चा लेकर सामान लेकर और एक बच्चा रोते हुए चल रहा है तो सारी चीज मेरा दिमाग में है मेरा हार्ट में है माइंड में है तो शायद हम पेंटिंग करेंगे आगे में इसके ऊपर तो ये बहुत असर पड़ा है ड्यूरिंग द पेंडेमिक पीरियड और डिजिटली तो हम क्या बता सकता हूँ जो मॉडर्न आर्टिस्ट है तो उसके लिए अभी थोड़ा प्रॉब्लम है पर हम लोगों के लिए बहुत बहुत नॉट ओनली मी द परफॉर्मिंग आर्टिस्ट एंड सो मेनी क्राफ्ट्स पर्सन उसके लिए और मुश्किल है मैं तो थोड़ा नौकरी हूँ मैं सर्विस करता हूँ तो शायद इतना भी पता नहीं चला पर जिसका कुछ है ही नहीं जो टोटली परफॉर्मिंग आर्ट करते हैं और जो और भी ट्रेडिशनल और क्राफ्ट्स पर्सन होता है बैम्बो कैन जो भी है तो वो मूवमेंट नहीं कर सकते तो उसके लिए और बड़ा मुश्किल होता है
हाँ बिल्कुल that in fact is very right and like Mithu was saying also before this awareness continuously of what is happening with the human beings around us is something I think that has to constantly keep coming up as a question. But now, moving on to Amit, I'll go back to Amit now to sort of ask you, continuing from Kalamji's idea of what it is, what is the difference between someone who can access digital media and someone who can't. You were cut off suddenly, you were working from home. What has been this experience of working from home? You said it was positive for you. So was this period creatively good in terms of making work, or how did it affect your, in fact, working conditions?
Again,
You have to
I could not
unmute
hear.
him.
सॉरी,
Yeah.
मैं कलम जी के आंसर को मैं थोड़ा एक्सटेंड करके मैं थोड़ा सा बोलना चाहूँगा कि एज अ डिजिटल जो प्लेटफॉर्म अभी इस्टेब्लिश्ड हुआ, ये बहुत ही मुझे लगता है एज अ पर्सनल बहुत अच्छा है, क्योंकि जो भी होता है अच्छे के लिए होता है, ये एक कहावत है। एंड देन पहले हम लोग टाइपराइटर यूज़ करते थे, अभी कंप्यूटर यूज़ कर रहे हैं। टाइपराइटर में एक फील होता था, उसके साउंड, उसका स्पेस, उसका कलर्स, उसका पेज का, बट एज अ कंप्यूटर में वो सारे चीज़ चले गए, बट हम लोग आगे बढ़ रहे। तो डिजिटल प्लेटफॉर्म का बहुत एक अभी के टाइम में बहुत एक आने वाले कल में बहुत एक जगह स्पेस है, बिकॉज ऑफ क्योंकि अभी जैसे वर्क फ्रॉम होम का एक जो सीनरियो आया है, तो रिमोट एरिया से हम लोग काम करते हैं। अभी वर्किंग कल्चर ऑल ओवर वर्ल्ड में हो गया, क्योंकि मैं यूरोप का काम घर में बैठे आज कर सकता हूँ। पहले एक स्टेट बाउंडेशन था, कंट्री बाउंडेशन था, बट अभी कहीं भी बैठ के मैं घर से बैठ के कहीं का भी काम कर सकता हूँ। मैं गूगल का काम मैं घर में बैठ के कर सकता हूँ। तो ये डिजिटल प्लेटफॉर्म के थ्रू ये बहुत एक्सटेंड हुआ। एंड देन डिजिटल प्लेटफॉर्म में जो इस ऑनलाइन सारी चीजें होता है, क्योंकि ये मिड करियर आर्टिस्ट के लिए ये पहले से ही होते रहा है, क्योंकि पहले जो एज अ ऑर्गेनाइजेशन एज अ आर्टिस्ट के वो पहले डिजिटल मेल एक्सेप्ट करते, देन पसंद आते, देन उसको डिटेल इमेज एक्सेप्ट करते, देन पसंद आने के बाद उनके बाद फिजिकल काम वो गैलरी में इनवाइट करते हैं कि हाँ आप फिजिकल काम भेजो। एज अ आर्टिस्ट वो पहले डिजिटली प्रेजेंट करते हर जगह, तो उसके बाद फिजिकल काम का एक स्पेस आता है। तो सेम चीज ये वही एक बात हो गई कि जो चल रहा था उसको एज अ विजुअली हम लोग देख पा रहे, जो पहले देख नहीं पाते थे। कोई भी गैलरी, कोई भी किसी के पास भी। सेकेंड थिंग, डिजिटल होने के बाद पहले बहुत सारे मिड करियर आर्टिस्ट के पास, जैसे मेरे पास बहुत रिक्वायरमेंट आते थे कि अमित उस आर्टिस्ट का मेल आईडी है क्या, ये आर्टिस्ट का फोन नंबर है, क्योंकि हमसे बात करना चाहता है एज अ मेंटोर, इस गैलरी के साथ, इस क्यूरेटर के साथ मुझे मेल करना, काम एक्सचेंज करना है। तो अभी डिजिटल प्लेटफॉर्म के थ्रू सारे लोग एज अ डिजिटली प्लेटफॉर्म यूज कर रहे, तो अभी कम्युनिकेशन ईजी हो गया कि कोई भी आर्टिस्ट के थ्रू कोई भी किसी को रिप्रेजेंट करना है काम को, एंड देन एज अ मेंटोर वाइज किसी को भी बात करना है, तो इजीली हम लोग कम्युनिकेट कर सकते हैं एज अ मिड करियर आर्टिस्ट। तो ये बहुत ही अच्छा हो गया। एज अ पैंडेमिक मेरे लिए भी बहुत इजी हो गया, क्योंकि वन एज अ वर्क फ्रॉम होम, देन हम लोग में काम करते हैं, घर पे काम करते हैं, उसके साथ साथ बहुत टाइम मिल जाते हैं खुद का एक स्पेस को एनालाइज करना, खुद का एक जगह को देखना कि मैं कौन हूँ, क्या कर रहा हूँ। क्योंकि वी आर सारे लोग, हम लोग एज अ आर्ट फील्ड से बिलोंग करते, आर्ट 6 ईयर एज अ एजुकेशन कंप्लीट करके हम लोग इस प्लेटफॉर्म में पहुंचे, बट डे बाय डे सारे सर्कमस्टेंसेस चेंज होते हैं, फैमिली मैटर्स एंड फाइनेंशियली सारी चीज अलग होने लगते हैं। तो देन वो हम लोग एक सर्वाइवल का जगह खोजने लगते हैं कि कुछ काम करें। तो उसके वजह से एक आर्ट ऑर्गेनाइजेशन है, एज अ आर्टिस्ट एक ऑर्गेनाइजेशन के साथ कोलैबोरेट करते हैं, उसके साथ जॉब करते हैं, देन वो अपना काम करते हैं, बट वो अपना एग्जिस्टेंस खो देते हैं कि वी आर आई एम आर्टिस्ट। तो ये पैंडेमिक में एक क्वेश्चन मेरे साथ आया कि मैं एक आर्टिस्ट हूँ, उसको किस तरह से देखता हूँ मैं एज अ, जब मैं एज अ प्रैक्टिसिंग, मैं ऑलरेडी स्टूडेंट था उस टाइम। तो ये पेंडेमिक मेरे लिए बहुत एक्सटेंड हुआ, क्योंकि मैं कभी बॉम्बे को इस जगह से देखा नहीं हूँ कि इतना साइलेंट, इतना मतलब एक अलग वे है। बॉम्बे कभी भी ऐसा नहीं है, और कभी भी मैं ये एक्चुअली ये पैंडेमिक इस टाइप से हर 10-15 साल में कुछ ऐसा होगा, क्योंकि ऐसा नेचर के साथ जो होता है। क्योंकि मैंने नोटिस किया इंस्टाग्राम में सडनली स्काई के सारे फोटोग्राफ शेयर करने लगे कि डिफरेंट स्काई, ब्यूटीफुल स्काई, एंड यहाँ के स्काई, सारे अलग अलग जगह के स्काई की फोटोग्राफ। तो इतना प्योर क्लियर स्काई कहीं नहीं होता है कि इस पैंडेमिक के 1 ईयर का ड्यूरेशन में जो है। तो इट्स अ नेचर का एक अलग इफेक्ट था इस हमारे जनरेशन के ऊपर, जो भी एक ह्यूमन के ऊपर। तो ये सारी चीजें हैं, और मेरे लिए तो बहुत अच्छा रहा, क्योंकि मैंने बहुत सारे जो अपने एक ब्लैंक स्पेस को मैं फुलफिल करने की कोशिश किया, कि मैंने अब खुद को एनालाइज किया कि मैं क्या कर सकता हूँ, क्या कर रहा हूँ, और क्या क्या हो सकता है। मैंने खुद को इम्प्रूव करने की कोशिश किया अपने काम के थ्रू, सारी चीजों के थ्रू। तो दैट्स इट।
Samit, I think that's a very that's a very beautiful perception actually, and I'm so happy that you actually had a positive experience and this self analysis and being part of this place which is Bombay and understanding this period. I think that good luck, in fact, as you keep working. But
Yeah, thank you.
with that, talking about then now a very different space, I'll go to you, Arun, in fact, to address a couple of things from your practice. You have, like you mentioned, already been in the process of a kind of shift towards more socially and environmentally active spaces. And it's different from being in an urban space, even though you do, have a studio in an urban space. So, can you just share some of your observations? Because it has been a period of social upheaval. So, can you simply share some of your experiences during this period?
Yeah, everybody has experienced it. That is the first, the big, you can say, experiences that curtailment to your movement. So you couldn't go around. So that is, you could eat, you could do, you could do anything within your space, but if you wanted to just go out and take a fresh breath, so that was a main thing that everybody has experienced. But especially in my case, I mostly I keep visiting my studio. I mean that the center where the work is going on, and a lot of programs lined up, with students and other, the age group. There were a lot of workshops were lined up during that time, and then we had to cut down, or cancel all the workshop plans. All those workshops are basically about environmental awareness and basically to get to know our these such dangers which are coming into our life, so which has come up. And so now we are basically trying to realign our plan. So there was that issue had come up, and I had to really um, think what should be the next lineup action. So, but still, I went out in the mid-June, traveled for the first time to the center and spent more than a month there. And so it was all quite, you know, foreseeing the future just there. Uh, so that was about it. And then it had given me a lot of time to prepare for the next in my own practice, or the mission that I have with the center.
Yeah.
Though some of the work that has been going on throughout the pandemic, we have a program called Swagrama, working with villagers, and water rejuvenation programs, and that and this, which I come to that later. So that has been going on at village level, because there is no much of a density of people. So that has been going on. But and mostly once I came back here, I have been operating mostly everything from here along with my work. But I must say that I couldn't really do much during this time, though I had all my time to me myself. But this constant unsettled mood in the mind, so I couldn't really do much. I always wanted time for myself to read or do drawings and work, other works. But though I had this 10 months of a lot of time, but I couldn't do much. So I think, I don't know how other artists have, like Kalamji was just saying that even he couldn't do much, though there was so much for us in front of us.
Yeah.
Continuous, the workers, migrant workers issues that we used to see thanks to social media, and also now this farmers protest and things. Though I went out and spent a lot of time with the protesting people, following. It is only more of a receiving than
Yeah.
doing. Yeah, that is what has happened.
Yeah, and I think that as Mithu said earlier, this differentiation between art and life, and in terms of what you are doing with your practice as an artist, is using it as an interface in a different space, actually.
Right.
So the role or the relevance of the art or art making itself then changes meaning. Would you like to share a few slides or and talk about a little bit of the work that you're doing?
So, I wanted to share that is that, uh, especially with my, I will also talk while showing the screen, sharing the screen. Um, so, have I shared? Can you see the screen?
Yes.
Okay. So, especially, I had this challenge in my mind always as an artist. All these issues that we see in our everyday life. What can I do with my artistic experience and skills, whatever that we have acquired? I'm not really a writer. I can't do much otherwise. Only I know some art forms, and within that, what can I do? How can I do? And how can I do some change? So it is also it works both way. My the setting up the center and spending more time there is in the Western Ghats, especially where it is located in the almost in the middle of the Western Ghats, where you are in the middle of all that, the biodiversity hotspot and all that is happening. You are there and you have been seeing that change over the time. So I wanted this information as a first-hand information for my art, my practice, which I had been doing since last maybe 10, 12 years. So I thought of spending more time there, and so I have set up this center with a lot of ideas. So though it is not like a ready-made thing that you just go and install it. So it is started with reforestation of the area around my farm, and like that's my father's farm. And observing what is happening and studying the minute things and all. So there, building a kind of infrastructure, a space that where people can come and share their ideas. It both ways. Asking the local people to share their ideas with others, and others coming there and sharing their ideas. So it was like that, and we did over the last 6 years. We've done a lot of outreach, to schools, students, teachers, and all other stakeholders of the area. So this is basically more of a learning for myself, and also to put my artistic skills to use there, using art as a main medium of communication, as art brings people together. That was the main purpose of it, because in villages, you know how difficult it is for us to bring people together. So art was the
Yes.
main thing. So that is what was very interesting, and then that gave more a confidence in me to keep going. There are a lot of plans that are going on, though last 10 months was a little bit of disruption, but I mean, basically talking about I mean, basically seeking the first-hand information that one needs for our artistic practice. One is for for my own benefit, and also at the same time you return that to the local as an exchange of ideas. So that's, I mean, the work has just started. It is not over or anything. So I thought of this space as an anchoring space for many of us who think about this, and so you can really do a lot of things there. That was the whole idea. So as you just said, how I could this is what I could do, and then it is ongoing thing. But this last 10 months of time was really very crucial for us to move forward.
Right, right. Thank you, Arun. I think that's really inspiring, and perhaps this period really gives us an opportunity to rethink many different things. Like Mithu was saying earlier, this monolith or these sort of boxes that have already been structured, and we have been sort of thinking through them or building through them. Perhaps this is a good time to question those. Going to you now again, Mithu, I wanted to actually ask you about this shift, that you have been thinking in different ways, sort of against the set conventions about art practice, about presentation, about viewership or display, or, which you mentioned yourself. So you, of course, said that it is not different during this period. But in what way have your thoughts got extended or sort of grown during this period? Because you also have been like a diarist, putting these bits of unworlding, poetry, which have come out in different ways on social media. So can you talk a little bit about your internal, thought processes as well as this project that has been continuous during this period?
Different.
We have to.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yes, we can hear you now.
Yeah. So I'm saying like listening from Kalam or Arun, and Amit, it's very interesting to. So when we are all isolated and really getting time, this kind of dialogue, and when I'm listening, I can see that this life is not in not only in a singular, like kind of linearity, but neither also in any kind of a binary. It's a multi-dimensional multiverse we are living. So all kind of projections. So the reality Kalamda is having and expressing, and I was thinking that why I have that luxury or privilege that I did not really think on that platform. Or Arun, like we hardly know that kind of, like that side of Arun, what he's doing in his village in Karnataka. It's like fantastic. I think like I hope the pandemic should definitely end, like this kind of things, but knowing each other's space, the real space, should come out and put in a discourse that who are we actually as an artist, who are making this different kind of myth and not even letting us open and transparent share that thing, like so inspiring, and I get very emotional actually with this kind of things. So this whole myth I was talking, that I started questioning within myself, but I was that art community is such that you always are kind of, you follow a norm because otherwise you feel isolated. You are not in a, like it's like you are not in this community. And to understand that how to not become in the community is also like your own artistic language, and to be in the community and not being a performer of that community, like one main thing I think we are always should remember, because that gives us a lot of trauma. To be isolated from, and it's not about market or being in the mainstream. It's a different kind of loneliness, like that if somebody's not understanding your language. Since I come from Shantiniketan and Bengal, only brought up in Bengali and poetry, all these things, I had that kind of confrontation and isolation, humiliation when I came to a city like Delhi, and I experienced a different politics of language. Before that, it was not in my mind. I was rather like a very confident person. So the whole lingual politics became a metaphor in my practice. So the myth I was telling, like the myth is like I found slowly through my journey that it's a matrix of codes and norms and functions that assign to us. And we live in this society that, which is like normally, kind of reproduced. In fact, it's very deepened. So when I perceive the myth as a code, and how I see that whole normative, it's like as I'm becoming a marker and telling me what to do, and actually putting me in that this cocoon, that I'm forgetting who I am and what I'm supposed to do. So my first online, I know the different reality between Kalam, me, and many other artists or artisans, but when I started exploring the online digital, platform, the computer, because we are not born with the computer. So I actually, coming from Shantiniketan and, coming to Delhi in the late 90s, first time I started using computer, and I really fell in love with things. Some video games, it was the starting. And then my first website, which was a web-based project, launched in 2007, called Free Mithu. But then the next 10 years, I never had any of my own website. I never thought of it. I used the media that this device or this medium as one of my project. So there is, of course, always a difference between artists promoting themselves and artists using that platform to promote their projects, or kind of creating. So I since for last so many years, I am handling this digital media as almost like my passion and hobby, and which was never been included as my main practice, because there is a different kind of marketability, which is that the whole popular skill. And I'm equally passionate about making drawing, and fully respectful, and I still do, and I'll do till my last breath. But I'll never I'll never let the market to access it as my production. I'm not a factory. So I'll only do when I want. It will be limited, and the rest of the time I'll constantly experiment and try the new mediums that really excites me. So from Free Mithu, which actually gave me a taste of being democratic in my own way, to create my own viewer. And now also when I see that now how much we are using the social media, that whole term about viewership become as user. So viewer, the status of viewer is a user, and I find the user is not just a user, it's a co-performer. So if I am performing something from this side of the screen, so someone whom I even don't know is following me, kind of noticing and watching out what is happening and constantly participating. So the whole the status between an artist as a static image producer or something now has changed. I'm only telling about me, because I'm going through this time where I'm exploring the different kind of medium. And that very liberating, very democratic medium is actually gave me a huge amount of different responder, from like a feedback or a responder. So I am not no more depending only through one or two platforms I used to be projected.
Right.
And you Google Mithu Sen, you see the platform, what Mithu does, maybe 20%, which is undeniable that I do that part. But what about my poetry? What about that I make plans? So that personal sharing and cultivating your own follower, I started thinking and kind of like introspecting about the digital media, and I find the digital media is not just creating artwork in Photoshop or something like that. This is not a digital medium for me. I really try to think deeply that what digital aesthetic can be and what is the digital politics. So these two things you constantly have to survey. And I'm not saying that digital media or this online medium or this social media is very, very liberating and has full freedom, because they also come with their own red flags: surveillance, censorship. You can see how Trump was, like recently blocked from Twitter for good reason or bad reason, how the whole monopoly of controller is shifting from a government to like a company, so those all those politics, if you follow, you get the real interest of this medium. And I find that how to play with this politics of being into the digital media, is it only that I'm using that platform? No, it is more about how I can really consume it and then kind of take it out as a different how to say, so like anyway, so that I started using social media. Suppose Instagram, I have created 2 Instagrams. One was my long time suppressed desired self, that is like, I love poetry, and starting, like, my mother is a poet, Bengali poet, so how I started my Bengali poetry journey as a young, and then moving to Delhi, stopped writing for 10 years in complete silence, and then come to write, into glitches, and acknowledging those glitches as my poetry, validating them by my publisher. So these are all very funny kind of way of my journey I worked to. And then you started using these social media, using that little bit of cryptographic, kind of image and word as a visual, which I call them my unpoetries, and that also I'm doing for last 5-6 years, to like not to just share. I use this platform to get responses, and this platform gives me a kind of strain, because I see that I have two different Instagram accounts. One is like my very regular drawing based popular imageries that anybody can Google and see what Mithu Sen does as an artist and drawer. Another is those kind of a very gray, palatable, kind of forms and structures and text, and kind of meaningless nonsense sometimes, but still there are likings. So what are these likings? I started inventing. I inbox people who likes, whom I don't even know. Who are those, those people? So I have a long-term engagement with unknown people, and I have created a vernacular language between me and them. So I have a different kind of relationship, building up my own follower, so that poetry and text-based Instagram account has more than 8,000 maybe follower, whereas that very popular and very sensual kind of drawing which I keep posting as a psycho map or to see, have 2,000 kind of followers. So I tally between them time to time to see like what attracts people. how I can create a vocabulary between them. So I play and I use the digital media in different ways. And during pandemic, honestly, as Arun said, from March 3rd till December 8th, I did not make a single piece of art product, like a tangible, neither a drawing or a sculpture. I couldn't go to my studio due to the border closing, and slowly I started going. But I am in a different process. I have developed questioning this, how I can reach being an untouchable form of art. My recent body of works that I'm developing, and one just showed, is the using the QR code, which is a very common, popular device these days. Not to touch, you scan it and you get the backend. So I'm creating that QR code, like as a visual for the viewer to access without knowing what is happening in the backend. And this I call a performance piece. How that when you scan, you don't know what is on the other side, what is in the back end, and it is durational. So I keep it for 3 months, or maybe 2 years, or maybe 4 years, or maybe. So I subscribe the URL, and I keep doing things on the back end and digitalize that form, whatever is, like as a diarist, maybe I am developing every day, and I'm putting in this back end, and people can, whomever is accessing it, can experience that part. It also break the hierarchy of single ownership, because when I put it as a QR code and I share it, who is the owner of this? Is it the light box or the QR code pattern or the back end? And one day I can just stop providing my experience, or it can be stopped on my physical death. So to challenge and to question that flattened time, that we always put things in either in a medium or a time frame. So that I'm just trying to explore, that how both this binary between for an artwork, and to question the provenance of an artwork, can be unsettled. So I'm having fun. I don't know how I'm saying these things, but it's quite a complex thing. I'm very empathetic about people who are not able to use the digital media properly for whatever reason, different reasons. And I myself is really, really very bad with technology. But to share my struggle with the technology, being a middle-aged, person, I think is becoming my language of crisis of this time. So I don't fear of exposing my inability of whatever, whether it's language or my body, skin color, or inability of sharing my not so sophisticated, technically sound medium. So I just bring everything here, and not really wait for approval. I just walk through, and then I see that there are friends and people who are also with me, because they are also in the same kind of situation, maybe in different vocabulary, whether it's Kalam, Arun, Amit, you, Parvathi. But we are in the same time, we are all going through the crisis, and we are aware about the crisis, and we have to accept, admit, and we have to really think that how we can still survive in this crisis. We have to be just united. Solidarity with crisis with each other. I think the pandemic is a blessing, because it is only once in a lifetime. I don't know. Last time it was 100 years ago. We have to be just united. I'm very I think we are fortunate to understand with each other. Is it echoing? Can you hear me? Or I'm just talking? Am I audible?
Yes, you're audible.
Oh, okay. I mean, I suddenly everything was stopped, and what I was talking with, and I don't remember. But and my Arn world that Lina mentioned. Yes, I have created or cultivated a world to give me there are times when you have nobody around you, so you have to protect yourself, and that protection only happens by self-love and self-respect, and you create a world within yourself. And Ani is not to negate, by the way. Ani is my own lexicon I have in a funny way created. Ani is to counter. It's a contrary meaning. It's not it's not negative. It's rather, like it is definitely kind of an undoing that all kind of stoppable forces I feel that stopping me from what I desire, from my freedom. And I don't want someone to say that what if there is a love jihad I should follow or not. Love jihad I'll always hate. I'll publicly hate. And if I love another person from any different religion and community, anybody does, I'll be with him or her all my life. So I am not going to listen what someone is saying, so I'll undo that. I'll not let anybody to control me and say that I'm taking your power. From today, you can only love someone looks like you, Mithu Sen, like a clone of Mithu Sen only. You cannot love Arun or Amit or Parvathi or Lina because they don't look like you. So mind that. What is happening in this world? Why is this happening? Lina, I think ask someone to talk.
Oh yes. So that was beautiful. I think that coming to Parvati now, in fact, I'd like to ask you, Parvati, in your own experience now, you have worked through very different things during poetry, photography, some collaborative work, and sort of experienced many different things during this period. So, ask you, how was the experience of doing these different things, and what have been the results of those different experiments of yours?
Thank you, Lina. I think, it's been a very, very difficult space, the lockdown. It's Can you hear me? Space, the lockdown. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I think it was, life went on in one way, one day, and then literally the next day it stopped, time stopped. And, there are, as I think we've discussed, Lina, that when you are a woman and when you're a single mom and when you are, doing these realities, at the best of times, there's very little support for an artist. We've discussed this. If there are residencies, there are no residencies that cater for a single mother. There are no support systems. And, to suddenly find yourself in the space without support and without, the ability to go out and connect with the outside world in specific ways. My daughter suddenly, is in the house 24/7. She has to deal with the harsh realities of being an online student, and how does she make sense? It's been 9 months since she's seen any of her friends. She's been in the house, so you're there on call as a mother a lot more. The porous, the spaces between being a mother, an art maker, a home builder, these spaces become very, very porous. You are also then somebody who's looking out and seeing a world of migrants, and you realize that however difficult your space is, it is still a privileged space compared to what people, on the street outside who can't go home are. So to start with, in the first days of the lockdown, I just was immobile. I was just standing, within my apartment, realizing I can't go out. I stood by the windows and I looked out of the windows and I just kept looking. And then suddenly I realized I was seeing what I was looking very differently. I, started taking photographs with the limitation of I can only take pictures from my window. And then, the playground, which used to be full of children, is empty. There's nobody there. So instead, I looked at the things in the playground, the seesaw and how the sunlight fell on the seesaw. And I think later, if I screen share, I'll sort of, the seesaw's shadows became like a sundial. Time was being marked by nature in a very different way from my window. The passage of time was the empty playground and the continually empty objects of play down there. And then sort of words started wrapping themselves around these images. And it was a way of expressing what I was feeling through a form of art making that I'm very interested in, called photo poetry, which is not necessarily literally photographs, but the marriage of images and words where one cannot really exist without the other. And yes, Darshan, it would be lovely if you could show maybe a couple of these, one of these images to start with. And, then, it took this idea to, to other poets and to the Goethe Institute. So this is the scene from my living room with, standing 8 stories high, taking this picture of, the seesaw, and, it sort of talked to me about varying emotions, but it also showed, the passage of time in an empty space, because that's what it was. We were, locked up, but there was emptiness inside and outside. And it became a very powerful metaphor with which to talk about the pandemic. Then further on into this, a few of us poets got together and we created this project called Held, the Lockdown in Words and Images. And it became a way of, we did multiple uploads. The Goethe Institute very kindly, had us. And we did, regular updates about the changing nature of the pandemic and our changing responses to it. So after looking outside of my home, the other images sort of came from within. And then I invited people to send me news stories. I mean, the only way most people were able to communicate with the outside was through news stories, through unreliable news stories, through the social media, through TV. And I was interested in knowing, what are people reading? How are they reacting? And a lot of the stories that came to me were about the migrants. And so I started a series of, newspaper drawings from the newspapers, about, there was the story of the migrant boy who walked, thousands of miles on the back of a suitcase to get home, to draw images that were connecting people, the images that were staying in people's minds in these times, which was also the story of how other people outside were living. So it was also connecting with people, saying what is sort of catching your interest, what is resounding with you, and to draw these images and again words, and then to write poetry to it. So it again became the hand drawn. So that was very exciting. And then, talking to people, I think many people, as an artist, I am very comfortable with solitude. As an artist and a writer, I'm very happy to be in my house, but I'm not so happy not to be able to travel. And then I kind of looked at the things that, when I travel, I don't have the money to buy expensive things. I don't. They're little things bought from little places. So, in Italy, there was, from a potter, I bought, the poppies that he was throwing, and then it's still there in my house. So within this, I wrote a series of poetry called Haibun, which is a Japanese form, both prose and poetry, linking the objects in my house to the travels that were there, and then to ideas of, how the poppy stays in my work as a flower of remembrance. It's sort of made of bone ash, and it's reminiscent of war. It's a flower that has so many dark and light layers associated with it. So to kind of re-look the domestic space was very interesting. And as we posted it, people would call me and talk to me saying how similar their experiences were of feeling isolated and looking for connection. So in that way, the poetry and the imagery was a great form of communication. And this, as it says, this was much later. I mean, after the poetry project, I was involved in, a South Asian online digital festival. But again, the gaze that I had was sort of within looking at water politics. I mean, water, as Arun knows, has been a through thread in my work for so long. And in this particular case, it was a script that I had written a long time ago about, how the personal politics of water and the larger politics of water are just the same. People say the next world war will be fought on water. Well, if you look around you, it's being fought in your building, with your neighbors. The politics of water, we're already enmeshed in it. And we don't seem to quite realize this. So there was this film that I made about, it was a 3-part film. And, in one part, I was looking at, the politics of water on a large scale, as well as not contrasting it, but just setting it alongside with the fact that we buy water. I mean, our parents are, are still sort of shocked at this idea that we would buy water, that water is scarce, water is ration, and this leads to wars and, a not very pleasant environment in which to live. So that was another project that I was involved in. And then there was yet another, autobiographical project about, my father who was in the army. And this was to be realized as a performance and an installation. But of course, it can't be, not in this time, though, my collaborators, very sort of kindly said, we're not saying it's canceled. We're only saying it's postponed to a time when this is possible. But then again, a lot of, the idea of looking at, the army life and to look at, the army as guarding prisoners. And in a different way, we are interred. We were prisoners in a sense, willingly perhaps, in our own spaces. So, to look at that whole experience in the form of storytelling. So, and I guess it, like some artists, this was an opportunity not to think about productivity in the sense of, creating for a market, or any of that, but to do what your heart told you, to go with the flow of experiencing ideas you wanted to experience, of really being able to look inside and marry that to a reality outside and bringing that together. And, to sort of work as, to create these images, which is still going on, and to eventually, hopefully, show them as videos, as stories, to become storytellers. Show them as videos. So, it's been, in that way, it's been such an enriching time. And this project, this ongoing one about storytelling and images, it's autobiographical. It's with my niece. It's about my father. To kind of, take this time and to talk about it and write about it. I've done a lot more writing, which I've wanted to do in this time, without thinking of any of this as product. I think, the capitalist environment in which we live sort of seems to equate productivity with happiness. If you're not every nanosecond of your time, if you're not producing something for this unseen market, you're not even allowed or supposed to be happy. But that's not true. That's not why we're artists. We are here to express a truth. And it could be a contentious truth. It could be but you'll find that when it is a truth, as I found with the poetry and with the water film, when you're expressing a truth, it resonates. It finds its resonance. It connects to people. It doesn't have to be a large group of people, but there are people there who will resonate with that truth, with the reality of your situation in a different way, holding up a mirror to theirs. I don't like the cynicism of doing something of the pandemic as a sort of clever work of art. That's never been how I've worked. It's always had to be something that's expressed from the heart. But you find that the multiple realities and the multiple truths are like beads on a string, and it links people. And that's, I think, one of the greatest rewards of the pandemic. At the same time, it has been deeply shattering to see, on a simple level. Again, as Lina knows, I was supposed to go and see my uncle who was ailing, and because of the pandemic, I couldn't go and see him, and he's since passed on. The losses that the pandemic takes from you are myriad, and we can only live with it, grow with it, and feel that empathy. I see these multiple realities of Kalam and Amit and Mithu and Arun, your reality, Lina. We're all inhabiting different realities and trying to make sense of them in this difficult time. And many thanks to you for bringing us together and to have this real sharing of saying, what is it to be an artist in the pandemic? It's not some design or some box into which you can fit. There are no ready-made boxes, or there shouldn't be. This being an artist is being who you are, and your responses at this time. I agree with Mithu. I don't think artists have this responsibility to be the ultimate narrator of our times. We don't. We do it anyway. We don't. It's not a burden that we need to take or we need to take on forcibly. We just create as we would in response to the spaces and times that we are in. And the digital, as we've always discussed, is a very, very strange time for me, because at one level, yes, I do embrace it, initially to Instagram, to sort of be out there uninhibited, to say what you want to say is wonderful, to work in video, to marry the digital and the hand done is wonderful. But again, to go back to sort of Walter Benjamin, and he talks about the loss of aura, and he was talking, of course, about photography and print and the original. But now with the digital, that your image can be endlessly reproduced. But at the same time, there's a little girl somewhere in the heart of the village who commits suicide because she doesn't have a laptop. So really, how sort of widespread is the digital? Really, how much of a leveling field is it? I don't think it's an either or. I'm delighted that we're here in this webinar in these little frames from different parts of India, that we can come together and we can speak. That is an immense positive, that we don't have to wait for plane tickets and the money to get together, that Ananya Drishya and NGMA and Lina can have this idea of bringing us together and we can have this sharing. That's wonderful. But if we think of the digital as replacing in some form the pleasure of being in the presence of an artwork, I don't think it can or it should. And it really shouldn't. So yeah, now I get emotional too, Lina, so I should also stop.
Thank you, Parvathi. I'm very sorry. I think I dropped out a couple of minutes twice because I haven't had any electricity. But I'm so glad still, to continue to be here. Kalamji, I would like to go to you. In fact, we are reaching towards the end of our entire discussion, which has been so fabulous. But Kalamji, if I can ask you about your work, it is about observations of the humanity around you. So, during this period, what do you think, in fact, is the situation that you are seeing around you, and what do you feel, in fact, can be done to help artists who are folk artists and traditional artists and artists who are performing? What do you think can be redone in these times to make it better for the future, for a very uncertain future?
कलम जी आप म्यूट पे हैं।
You're on mute, Kalamji.
Now this audible?
Yeah.
Okay. Actually, I'm talking in this regard that hundreds of art form and crafts are in Bengal and eastern part of India. But nowadays they are dying. Actually, जो फोक ट्रेडिशन आर्ट फॉर्म क्राफ्ट जो है उसका डेवलपमेंट का भी जरूरत होता है। तो अगर कोई डिजाइनर 8-10 कोई फोक क्राफ्ट्स लेकर डिजाइन करे तो डिस्कस करे, तो इसके लिए इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर है, पॉलिसी मेकिंग चीज होना चाहिए, फंडिंग होना चाहिए। अब पता चल रहा है कि सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट जो है सारे ये फंड नहीं दे रहा है। तो एक वजह है ये भी, और एकदम टोटली बंद हो जाएगा। तो अब लोगों को भी पॉलिसी मेकिंग का कुछ सोचना चाहिए। और जैसे पैनल डिस्कशन है, इसमें भी बहुत सारे जो फोक आर्ट है उसका जो मास्टर क्राफ्ट्समैन है उसको भी हिस्सा लेना चाहिए टू एक्सप्रेस देयर एक्सपीरियंस एंड आइडियाज एंड देयर प्रॉब्लम्स। तो इसमें भी कुछ हल हो सकते हैं। तो ये सब चीज चल रहा है पूरा देश भर में। जैसे कि आपने सुना, मिथु इतना अच्छा बता रही है, पॉलिस वेरी ब्रिलियंटली। तो ये सब सरवाइव करने के लिए, फोक आर्ट को सरवाइव करने के लिए अगर डिजिटल मीडिया में भी हो सकते हैं, डिजिटली आई एम वेरी अनएडुकेटेड, तो इसमें पता नहीं चलता इसमें टिकट हो सकते हैं कि नहीं। अगर डिजिटल कोई परफॉर्मिंग आर्ट कोई डिजिटली परफॉर्म करे तो उसका अगर सारे लोग नहीं आए तो जो सिलेक्टेड पर्सन अगर उसमें कुछ डिजिटली टिकट का इंतजाम करे, जो पैसा सीधा उनका अकाउंट में जाए। तो एक चीज होता है जो ड्यूरिंग दिस पेंडेमिक पीरियड और प्रो पेंडेमिक पीरियड पता नहीं चलता ये स्मूथली कब चलेगा, कब हम लोग बाहर आ सकेंगे। तो इसमें भी डिजिटली अगर वो परफॉर्म करेगा और शो भी होगा जो भी है, तो उसके पास भी कुछ पैसा मिलेगा तो ठीक भी है। और जैसे मैंने अभी भी बताया, जो बहुत सारे डिजाइन लोग डिजाइन कर सकते हैं, जैसे वो इको फ्रेंडली बहुत सारे आर्ट क्राफ्ट होता है बंगाल में। जो ग्रास का होता है, शीतल पाटी होता है, केन होता है, बैम्बू होता है। तो सारे में बहुत कुछ संभावना तो है। तो ये सब करना चाहिए। और मैं ये भी और दोबारा बताऊंगा, जो ये पैनल डिस्कशन में जो मास्टर क्राफ्ट्समैन है उसका भी बुलाना चाहिए। जैसे मुझे मेरे को अपॉर्चुनिटी दिया, आई एम वेरी थैंकफुल टू लीना फॉर गिविंग मी सच ग्रेट अपॉर्चुनिटी टू एक्सप्रेस माय आइडिया एंड एक्सपीरियंस। तो उन लोगों को भी ये होना चाहिए। तो सारे केवल ये बाबू लोग रहेगा, केवल इंटेलेक्चुअल लेक्चर रहेगा, तो उसमें सारे इतना हाल नहीं हो सकता है। पर मैं चाहता हूँ ये लोग भी शामिल हो, उनका बात बता सकते हैं। तो डायरेक्टली आप उसमें एक्सपीरियंस हो सकते हैं जो उसका अंदर क्या होता है, उसका फील्ड में क्या चल रहा है। तो हमें ही बताया थोड़ा बहुत। Lina ji. Hello. तो मैं
To be prepared. Sorry.
हाँ मैंने तो खत्म किया. You can ask anybody more question.
और कुछ बोलते हैं हमें?
अभी आवाज कट रहा है.
I'm sorry, am I audible?
Yes,
You're
yes.
breaking up a little bit, Lina. You're breaking up a little bit, Lina.
Yes, I'm really sorry. I haven't had electricity for the last 3 hours, and all my reserves of data are vanishing. But I would, in fact, simply be so wonderful to hear everyone.
Hello. I think Lina has disconnected due to some technical issue. I request Mithu ji to kindly share her images she wanted to share. I think she. So I request her to take on for a moment and share the images.
Okay, I had like 4 images that I wanted to share. I should have shared it.
Yeah, please. You can share the images.
So so this is one image because we were talking about that unhappiness during the pandemic, and I always like to put some butter and humor. Why is it going? Anyway, so this is one of the things that during this time, it's one of my social media posts, and with this dark humor, I tried to ensure the artists or the art community that this crisis also can become a resource for us. So this is like these are the two of my accounts, Instagram accounts, and you can see that the difference between these two, like in terms of followers, which is quite interesting. How I collect my my new viewer or follower or connector, and how I understand their vernacular language. So in a very straight way, if someone send you a message, inbox a message saying that I am your lover, it disturbs us. It's like make us uncomfortable. But you can see the emotion, and you definitely can understand what this person really mean. So and that person put me in a state of whether I should decline or accept. So this is language for me, and this is the QR code that recently I'm working, and I would say that this is the byproduct of that pandemic time for me.
Mithu,
And
we can't see the screen. Sorry, we can't
Huh?
see your screen. We can't see your images.
So what do you see? Oh,
We are not seeing.
really?
Request you to share the screen.
Ah,
I
okay.
got it. I'm just
Okay,
sharing.
so this was the first one that I was talking about, that unpoetry or the text thing, images putting during pandemic, when the pandemic started. So it was in I think early April, how we can use the resources, but of course in a very satirical way, because that the moment the pandemic started, all artists became a responder of this time, and I just felt like we are all going to change our status as an artist to responder even before we consume the crisis properly, so that the rush and that the demand from the art world to the artist or everyone to respond, how they are making art, how they are I mean, even after 11 months of this, the same situation, we are still addressing this issue. But it was the very, beginning of that period. And this I was showing that two different accounts and how I tally these two and try to, check that mind map for the human psyche, how they follow. And this is like one of the inboxed message that I received from somewhere, and that person very innocently, whatever capacity or ability he has in a common language like English for this whole subcontinent, and tried to reach out and tried to say that the word which sounds very, very funny, but at the same time, this fun will bring tears in your eyes. The desperation and the honesty and sincerity create a different kind of empathetic language. I think that is communication, and that is language for me. This is the recent work that which came out as a byproduct of this time for me, that how some device can be a mediator between me and the rest of the world, where you don't need to really access the artwork, in a tactile form, because we are unable to, like how Kalamda was saying, that the detail of the color or the brush stroke is so important for an artist. I myself practicing that part also, I understand that it is a frustration when we cannot share that. So I always try to respond as a responder, like a diarist every day. So this QR code I've created, where I just post the QR code, maybe one pattern, which also visually looks interesting. But it is not like something very unique that I have created. It is just a coding. It's a pattern that automatically generated from an image or sound or video. And then my part is what I'm doing, sitting on the other side every day, doing something, responding to my surroundings, my immediate, emotions, and digitizing that fact, and then uploading it, and then you are getting it also protect me from censorship, because I've been through a few times that censorship thing. So immediately you don't really know what is on the back end, and you put something that you really feel like need to share, and the viewer who is scanning it equally responsible. The word responsibility is coming because the responsibility I used earlier as a satire. So it's coming and divided between the artist and the viewer, between us. So there is no scope that you run away from it. Either you experience it, see what is there, that unheard and unseen voices, or you just don't. You just don't. Yeah. So this is what I wanted to share. That's all. Stop sharing. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. I think the pandemic has not let anybody not to experience this of something which is in between, which which doesn't need any intervention, but we have to experience. So unfortunately, Lina, with a bad connection, she's not able to join us. So, but she has one last question which I want to pose behalf of her. She says, what remedies can help artists at this time, physically, emotionally, creatively, economically? So I want to run a quick thing. We'll start with Arun Kumar. So I request Arun Kumar to just last question from the speaker and the moderator. Uh, so just take up this and
I think Kalam and many other have spoken towards this question, and I am not really in a position to answer this question. But generally, I mean, as an artist, we just have to use our skills towards whatever that we know towards such things. But I am sorry, I can't really question this. This is very general question. So if anybody else, like Parvathi, do you have any answers for this?
I mean, it's it's so systemic, isn't it? I mean, I think collaboration would be, if we, for artists to collaborate in a generous way and pool resources together would be of use to to both sides of the equation. For I read a very interesting article which sort of said that though large art fairs and large scale things are dying down, the domestic has become more important. That this was in the West, of course, that people were relooking their walls and thinking we need actual artwork on the walls. I mean, if there was some such thing and that translated into people buying the works of young students and young artists starting out, that would be so wonderful and positive. Then of course, I mean, if the in the 1930s, when America went through its Great Depression, FDR started that that New Era initiative, where for about 10 years the government commissioned artists to create work, and some really amazing artworks. I mean, it wasn't just sort of politically correct or any such thing. They very, very, the famous Dorothea image of the migrant mother. These images came out of that kind of support. So yeah, I mean, as an individual, what can you do other than maybe reaching out to other fellows and helping? But if you're a curator, collector, an art gallery owner, if you make policies, think about arts as not some out there thing, but as something that is necessary for the fabric of a nation to express itself. I mean, yeah, Arun, that's about all I could sort of think of.
Yeah, I can just add one more thing to it, is that in a time like this is we don't know actually the future, how like this pandemic, how it turned the situation completely reversed. So in a situation like this, we just have to reach out, as you said, to others and make whatever the kind of infrastructure that we can do and offer to fellow artists and others. That is the only way, I think, in a very personal capacities. But of course, we can't really talk about institutional capacities, because most of the institutions are not really functioning the way they should have been in a situation like this. Yeah, that is what my response. So,
I think like one thing I would rather say is not only about the pandemic, but again, as a human being, we are a species like who has that survival for the fittest kind of thing. So I would say like Arun mentioned about the skill. Yes, of course, we each of us through our education and life we earn some kind of skill, and we have to be in practice of that skill. So if I have studied art, I have the basic skill of doing something from the art without making it like a hype of artist, but just being a very good draftsman or craftsman of producing something which will be in a very reasonable way, like not sale as an art, but I can be an art teacher. I can teach, or I can share online classes and many things. So that will never go. But the problem arises when we all become a uh, self mythified artist kind of status, and that ego is so strong. We cannot accept that we are no more a full-time artist, in the sense that we just make whatever goes to the gallery walls, sells like something, and we have a fantastic life. No, it's not true. That kind of myth should be, broken, and saying that we all work every day. We have certain skill, and the bonus part is some of us may be fortunate, and some of us maybe, like this time something clicked. A part of our thing is becoming more appreciated. We are getting some extra parts, but we will never forget that very human thing that we have to always perform, being a very very like if my sister is studied chemical engineering, how she is surviving. So it's like, that kind of myth, of that kind of hyper, kind of life, or larger than life size persona we create is very falsified. It's not true. It's like Bollywood or Hollywood stars. But for artists, there is a different function. But the passion, it can be as large, as big, as monumental as it needs to be, within ourselves. But we should not project ourselves like an icon or cutout of cult. So that should, I think, this pandemic put us in a reality where we are thinking of the alternative way of surviving every day, whatever manner. Maybe I'm thinking something how to get this extra for my studio rent, or somebody is thinking how to put his or her children into a, like further, higher study. So everywhere we have to be realistic, and we have to accept that and embrace that fact, a very realistic thing, and keep that art and artist self. mm, I'm sorry, but this is very true. This is the reality. And this is also the age of collaboration. This is the time to be collective. It's a community we are in, and it's just not that supporting each other means, I send you some money and you survive. Or no, it's not. Conceptually and emotionally, we have to be thinking about a collective platform, that where we can have a dialogue, we can bring all kind of issues we are facing, and the realities behind our behind those different kind of, because I can fantasize. Maybe Arun Kumar has a golden throne. Who knows? A gold, not golden, gold. Or Parvathi has a diamond teddy bear. So it's like, let us stop imagining from that kind of unrealistic thoughts. We sit here, we talk, and also with the new generation, and there will be way, and of course to remind our policymakers and the institutions that this is the reality we are facing. So they also should think how they can provide artists some kind of alternative access, not to make a monumental public sculpture, not to create a bronze sculpture which can be competing with Statue of Liberty, but something to divide and share with our own, community artists, and do something like that. Yeah, I think, of course, policymakers can do a lot and think rationally and little sensibly. Yeah. Lina is back. Lina is back.
Can you hear me? I am not sure whether it will come through, but
Yes.
I am very apologetic for this situation in Goa. This is the situation where they will go for repairs at any point of time, and today turned out to be the day. So I have been hearing all of you in bits, but can you hear me now?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, yes.
Wonderful. I think then I would like to say a very big thank you again to NGMA, to Ananya Drishya, Mr. Vasudev particularly, all, the entire artist community, so many artists who have been talking to me over this period and from whom I got this idea. I would like to thank all of you, Arun, Parvathi, Mithu, Kalamji, Amit, for sharing your time today, your precious time to be able to come together. And I think, like Joe Biden said, unity is the way forward. And also, like Amanda said, we have to see the light and we have to be so much of respect and love to all of you. And I really hope that we can come together like this at a very real level and move forward, I think, through collaboration. Thank you all once again. And again, I'm sorry about my connection, but thank you so much. Darshan, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
On behalf of National Gallery of Modern Art, Bengaluru, and Ananya Drishya, I thank Lina for having this panel discussion to be thought of with a candid talk, and I think it was indeed a candid talk. And I also thank all the panelists for today stretching their time and joining for the session, which was quite long, but it was quite candid. So I thank once again. Have a good evening, and I lastly thank all the viewers who have joined us for this evening's panel discussion. And I also request them to follow on our Facebook page and also follow us on Twitter for further programs. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.